All right, so we are back and ready to dive into La Liga Matchday 28. You sent over a ton of articles and match highlights. Looks like you're as hooked on this title race as I am.
Definitely.
And this week.
Yeah.
Well, let's just say things got even more interesting.
You're not kidding. We had a potential title decider, some massive upsets, a few teams just fighting tooth and nail to avoid relegation.
Right.
There's a lot to unpack here.
There is. So for starters, we're down to the final 10 matches, and at the top, things could not be tighter. Barcelona and Real Madrid are level on points.
Yeah.
Goal difference is the only thing separating them right now.
Which is wild. To have these two giants in a genuine deadlock at this stage of the season is pretty unheard of.
Right.
It really puts the pressure on every single decision. Every shot, every point is going to be a battle from here on out.
And speaking of battles, let's talk about the Clash of the Titans. Barcelona absolutely demolished Atlético Madrid 4-2.
Yeah, that match was something else. On paper, it looked like it was going to be a really tight contest, but Barcelona just blew them away.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just the scoreline. It was the way they dominated. Xavi's tactics were spot on, completely stifling Atletico's midfield and forcing them into mistake after mistake.
Yeah, I was reading an analysis that highlighted Barcelona's aggressive pressing, particularly in that first half. They were relentless, forcing turnovers high up the pitch and creating chance after chance.
Exactly. It felt like a statement win from Barcelona.
Right.
Almost like they were sending a message to the rest of the league. We're here, we're serious about winning this title, and we are not backing down.
Speaking of not backing down, Real Madrid had their own challenge this week against a very tough Villarreal side. They managed to pull off a 2-1 win,
Yeah.
but it certainly wasn't a walk in the park.
Not at all. They were actually trailing for a good chunk of that match.
Right.
But what I think is so fascinating about that win is it really shows Real Madrid's championship mentality. They didn't panic. They stuck to their game plan, and they eventually found a way to break through.
Jude Bellingham's goal was something special, wasn't it? He's quickly becoming a key player for Real Madrid.
Absolutely. And he's only 19.
I know.
He's got such composure and vision on the pitch, it's almost scary. That goal was a perfect example. He just found that little pocket of space on the edge of the box, took a touch, and curled it right into the top corner. What a talent.
Yeah. Okay, so the title race is obviously the main event, but let's not forget about all the other battles that are going on in La Liga. We've got some serious competition for those European spots, and at the other end of the table, it's a real dogfight to avoid relegation.
You're right. It's easy to get caught up in the title race, but there are so many other storylines unfolding, all with huge implications for these clubs.
So let's take a look at the race for European qualification. We've got Athletic Bilbao, Real Sociedad, and Real Betis all vying for those coveted Champions League and Europa League spots.
And these are all teams that are playing some seriously exciting football. Athletic Bilbao, for example, relies really heavily on their youth academy, and they've developed this really dynamic, high-pressing style of play. They picked up another crucial win this weekend, edging out Valencia 1-0.
Yeah.
It was a tight match, but their defensive solidity was really impressive.
Real Sociedad's match against Sevilla was a bit of a nail-biter, too, ending in a 2-2 draw. I watched that one, and their midfield was really dictating the tempo for most of the match. They were unlucky not to come away with all 3 points.
Absolutely. And then there's Real Betis, who had a fantastic 3-2 win over Leganes.
Oh, yeah.
Isco was on fire, scoring 2 goals.
Yeah.
He's really found his form at Betis, and his creativity is a huge asset to their attack.
Those 2 goals he scored, textbook Isco. One, a curling effort from outside the box. The other, a perfectly timed run into the penalty area.
Yeah.
He's such a joy to watch when he's playing like that.
He's a game changer, that's for sure. And with these results, the battle for those European spots is really heating up. It's anyone's game at this point.
And speaking of heated battles, things are getting pretty intense down at the bottom of the table, too.
Absolutely. Valladolid and Espanyol are in a real scrap to avoid relegation, and every match is like a cup final for them. Mallorca picked up a massive 2-1 win over Espanyol this week, which gives them a fighting chance of staying up.
Relegation is a nightmare scenario for any club, right? Financially, it's a huge blow.
Yeah.
And then there's the hit to their reputation and the difficulty of attracting top players.
You're absolutely right. It's not just about pride. It's about the survival of the club. The pressure is immense, and you can see it in every tackle, every pass.
So with all this excitement brewing, what can we look forward to next week?
Well, hold on to your hats, because we've got El Clasico coming up. Real Madrid versus Barcelona.
Oh, man, that's going to be epic.
It's more than just a rivalry match at this point. With a title race this tight, this could be the decider. Yeah, it's going to be absolutely electric at the Bernabeu. I think the whole world will be watching, and the result could have a huge impact on who wins the title.
I can't wait. But before we get too carried away with El Clasico, let's dive back into some of the individual performances from this week. I mean, wow, there was some serious talent on display.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
We've already talked about Bellingham's brilliance, but let's not forget about Barcelona's dynamic duo, Lewandowski and João Felix. They were simply unplayable against Atletico.
Lewandowski's a goal-scoring machine. We all know that.
Right.
But his movement in that match was incredible. He was constantly finding pockets of space in between Atletico's center backs, making himself a nuisance all game.
Yeah, his awareness is next level. He's always a step ahead, anticipating where the ball's going to go and positioning himself perfectly to finish. He ended up with 2 goals and an assist, which is just ridiculous.
And João Felix, he's such a creative force. The way he drifts past defenders, his vision, his passing range, like he's playing a different game sometimes.
He's got that unpredictable flair, that touch of magic that can unlock even the tightest defenses. His partnership with Lewandowski is developing beautifully, and it's going to be a nightmare for opposing teams to deal with.
You mentioned Isco earlier, and his performance for Real Betis deserves another shout-out.
Oh, yeah.
2 goals in that match, both absolute beauties.
He's been reborn at Betis. I think the change of scenery has done him wonders. He's playing with a freedom and a confidence that we haven't seen from him in years.
I read somewhere that Manuel Pellegrini, Betis' manager, has given him a really specific role that plays to his strengths. He's kind of the creative hub of the team, the one who makes things happen in the final third.
Exactly. He's not burdened by defensive responsibility, so he's free to roam, to find space, to pick out those killer passes.
Yeah.
And when he's on form, he's one of the most entertaining players to watch in La Liga.
So we've talked about some of the attacking stars, but what about the tactical side of things? Were there any interesting managerial decisions or formations that stood out to you this week?
Definitely. Xavi's approach with Barcelona against Atletico was fascinating, like we talked about. He employed this really high pressing system that really disrupted Atletico's rhythm.
And it worked brilliantly. It was like Atletico couldn't even string 2 passes together without Barcelona breathing down their necks.
It was high risk, high reward, and it paid off big time. You know, it shows that Xavi is willing to be bold to adapt his tactics to exploit the weaknesses of his opponents.
In contrast, Ancelotti took a more pragmatic approach with Real Madrid against Villarreal.
Right. Villarreal are known for their possession-based style. And Ancelotti knew that trying to press them high up the pitch would be suicidal. So he instructed his team to stay compact, to be patient, and to wait for opportunities to counterattack.
And it worked, although it took them a while to break through. That second goal, the one that sealed the win, was a classic counterattacking move.
Textbook. A quick turnover in midfield, a pinpoint pass from Kroos and Benzema was off to the races. He slotted it past the keeper with ease.
It's so fascinating to see how these top managers approach each match differently. It's like a chess game, constantly adapting and trying to outsmart each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that makes La Liga so compelling. You've got world-class players, these passionate fans, and some of the most tactically astute managers in the world. It's a beautiful combination.
We've been talking a lot about the individual players and the tactical battles, but what struck me this week was the overall quality of football on display across La Liga. It wasn't just about the big teams. Even the matches involving teams lower down the table were exciting and full of drama.
I agree. La Liga is often praised for its technical quality, and this weekend was a perfect example of that. Even teams that are fighting for survival are playing with a level of skill and flair that's really impressive.
Yeah, I was watching the highlights of that Mallorca-Espanyol match, and even though both of those teams were struggling, the football was end-to-end full of attacking intent. No one was parking the bus or resorting to cynical tactics.
That's the beauty of La Liga. There's a commitment to attacking football, to entertaining the fans that runs throughout the league. It's not just about winning at all costs. It's about doing it in style.
It's refreshing to see, and it's why La Liga continues to be one of the most popular and respected leagues in the world.
Speaking of respect, I think it's time we shift our focus to a couple of teams who don't always get the headlines, but are quietly putting together really impressive seasons. I'm talking about Athletic Bilbao and Real Sociedad.
Yes, these are 2 teams that I know you're particularly fond of, and for good reason. They're both playing really attractive and effective football.
They are. Athletic Bilbao, as you know, has a unique philosophy, only fielding players who were born in the Basque country or have Basque ancestry.
Which is an incredible commitment to their identity and their community.
It is. And what's even more impressive is that despite this self-imposed limitation, they've managed to stay competitive in La Liga for decades.
And they've developed this distinct style of play that's all about high-energy, aggressive pressing and quick transitions. It's a joy to watch.
Their manager, Ernesto Valverde, he's a master tactician. He's gotten the best out of his players, and they're a real threat to any team in the league.
And then there's Real Sociedad, who are another team that are quietly building something special. They've got a young, talented squad, and they're playing a really fluid, possession-based style under Imanol Alguacil.
They're a team that's really easy on the eye. Their passing is crisp, their movement is intelligent, and they're always looking to create scoring opportunities.
They've been a little bit inconsistent at times this season, but on their day, they can beat anyone.
I think both Athletic Bilbao and Real Sociedad are teams to watch not just for the rest of this season, but for the future as well. They're building something sustainable, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them challenging for major honors in the years to come.
It's so exciting to see these teams emerging as forces in La Liga. It adds another layer of intrigue to the competition and makes the league even more unpredictable.
Speaking of unpredictable, I got a question for you. We've talked about the title contenders, the European hopefuls, and the relegation battlers. But what about the dark horses?
Ooh, I like this. You're talking about those teams that are flying under the radar, the ones that could potentially upset the established order.
Yeah, exactly. If you had to pick one team that could surprise everyone and make a late push for a European spot, or even, dare I say it, a top four finish, who would it be?
That's a tough one. There are a few candidates, but I think I'm going to go with Villarreal. They've had their ups and downs this season, but they've got a talented squad and a manager in Quique Setien who I think knows how to get the best out of them.
That's an interesting choice.
Yeah.
Villarreal are definitely a team with potential. They play a really attractive possession-based style, and they've got some dangerous attacking players like Gerard Moreno and Samuel Chukwueze.
Exactly. And they've shown that they can compete with the best, as evidenced by their performance against Real Madrid this week. They were unlucky to come away with a loss.
Yeah, I think a lot will depend on their consistency. If they can string together a few wins and build some momentum, they could definitely be a dark horse to watch in the race for Europe.
All right, so we've talked about the title race, the European spots, the relegation battle, and even the dark horses. As we head into the final stretch of the season, what are some of the key storylines you'll be following closely?
Well, for me, it's all about the tactical battles between the managers. We've seen some really fascinating approaches this season with teams like Barcelona and Athletic Bilbao embracing that high-pressing, aggressive style, while others like Real Madrid and Villarreal are more patient and possession-oriented.
It's like a chess match, isn't it? Each manager trying to outwit the other, adapting their tactics based on the opponent and the situation.
Exactly. And with the stakes so high, every decision, every substitution, every tactical tweak could have a massive impact on the outcome of the match.
I'll also be keeping a close eye on the development of some of those young players that we've talked about, like Bellingham, Gavi Pedri, Nico Williams. It's exciting to see these future stars emerge and make their mark on La Liga.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
La Liga has always been a breeding ground for young talent, and this season is no exception. It's going to be fascinating to see how these players progress and what role they play in the final outcome of the season.
And of course, we can't forget about the drama at the bottom of the table. The relegation battle is always intense, and this year is no different.
Yeah, it's a fight for survival, and every point is precious. We can expect some really tense and dramatic matches as these teams battle it out to avoid the drop.
It's going to be an emotional roller coaster all the way to the final whistle. La Liga never disappoints in terms of excitement and unpredictability.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's turn our attention back to you. You've obviously been following La Liga closely this season, so I'm curious to hear your thoughts. What are your predictions for the final stretch?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I'm going to put my neck on the line and say that Barcelona will edge out Real Madrid for the title. I think their attack is just too potent, and Xavi has them playing with a real sense of purpose.
That's a bold prediction, but I can see the logic behind it. Barcelona have been in fantastic form lately, and they seem to have found their rhythm.
As for the Champions League spots, I think it's going to be a really tight race between Atletico Madrid, Real Sociedad, and Real Betis. I wouldn't rule out Athletic Bilbao either.
Those are all strong contenders, and I think it will come down to the wire. As for the relegation battle, I think Valladolid might just escape, but it's going to be a real nail-biter.
It sounds like we are in for a thrilling finish to the season. Every match is going to have major implications, and there are sure to be plenty of twists and turns along the way.
Oh, that's La Liga for you. It's a league that always delivers in terms of drama, passion, and world-class football.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. Thanks for joining us on this journey through the world of Spanish football.
It's been a pleasure sharing our insights and analysis with you. We hope you've enjoyed this deep dive and that you'll continue to follow La Liga with us as the season reaches its climax. Until next time, may the best team win.